Hey guys, Ashlane here, coming at you today, highlighting some of my takeaways from the recent Clash Royale Tournament in Helsinki, Finland. So I thought it'd be cool for me to share kind of my experiences, what it was like a little bit behind the scenes, what the entire day was like, and in the background, I'll run the video, the raw video from my time in the semifinals. For those of you who don't know, I did make it to the main stage. I came in on 7th out of the 200 or so players who were there, and very grateful just to make it onto the main stage. I was the only YouTuber or streamer there in attendance to make it onto the main stage, but man, shout out to a couple of them. I know Chief Pat and Alvaro made it really, really close. I think they were both top 11 or 12 when all said and done. So much really depended on what happened in the very last match that you played in that 90-minute play-in round. So I was not happy with my performance on the actual stream in the main session. Many of you might know I went up against Steroidy, who was a Mortar player, and I said what I said on air was actually my true feeling. After the end of the match, I said that it was my job to counter that Mortar better, and I just didn't do that. And there were a few reasons for that, which I'll get into in today's video, and maybe talk about what I could have done differently, where I feel my strengths are in the game, and where I feel my weaknesses are, and maybe some of you can relate. Also, I'll talk about the tournament overall and things I felt they did really well, and things I feel could be perhaps adjusted the next go-round, so I'm sure there will be a next go-round. So first of all, for those of you who didn't see my live tour of the venue, it was really impressive. As expected, Supercell does a great job in production value, so I was really blown away with the main stage. And to be honest with you, I know the commentators made a few gaffes here and there, calling the zap spell a lightning spell and vice versa, not understanding at all times the exact minutia mechanics of every single last card. But from talking to them and from listening to the entire stream on my plane ride home, I actually can tell they're really passionate about the game. A lot of you might know them, some of you may not, but the two commentators, they actually cover Mortal Kombat X, I believe, and some of you might correct me if that's not. It's some variation of the Mortal Kombat game on a competitive level, so that's what they mainly do, but they know what they're doing, and you can tell by their energy level, they really have a great knack for the competitive e-gaming, esports gameplay, so I thought they did a great job. Really impressed with all the hosts and commentators, to be honest with you, and I think a lot of people, I think Galadon and Pat did a great job at ClashCon. I truly do believe that, and I think Molt, man, I just can't say enough good things about that guy. He did a fantastic job at hosting the ClashCon event on the main stage, and he did that without any scripts or dialogue. That was all off the top of his head, so I feel like Molt was a great host, but I also have to admit to being impressed with the guys who do this for a living. Oh, and here's yours truly entering the main stage right now, so I'm gonna go through maybe my first match, talk about what type of deck I was using and why I like it so much and why it got me as far as it did, and then I'll get into more of what the event was like behind the scenes, where I went wrong, and I'll just kind of riff on the event, and hopefully you guys will enjoy some, like I said, some of the behind the scenes stuff, and also we'll talk about the whole tournament aspect and where this game could go as far as e-gaming goes. So at this point, I'm just telling the host that, hey, as long as you're not playing a Mortar deck, then I think I'll be alright. Now, between me and you, my subscribers only, if you're not a sub, go ahead and close your ears right now, but my subscribers, I actually knew he was going to play a Mortar deck, but not until I had already selected my decks for the match. So my decks were already locked in. I could not counter because I did not know who my opponent would be at the time where I was selecting the decks I was going to use for the match. They had us all separated behind stage, so there was really no way I could even know who I was playing at that point. Didn't have the list of the names or anything like that. But let's go ahead and get... So I knew when I made that comment, if you heard the audio version, I told the host that, hey, he asked what I thought my chances were or what if I could say something about the decks I would be using, and I said, hey, Sean, as long as they're not using a Mortar deck, I like my chances. And then the crowd went wild, and like I said, I had kind of pre-known there that he was going to be using a Mortar. Unfortunately, I just didn't get to build a deck to counter that, and let's be honest, he outplayed me anyway, so probably wouldn't have won even had I had a good counter. So while the commentators are talking, let me just tell you a little bit about what the 90 minutes going into the finals was like. So you saw the venue. If you saw my tour of the venue, you saw a lot of it where we were sitting and stuff, but basically there was around 200 to 240 of us when you include like the staff and the people who weren't playing, and we were just sitting around in this really awesome arena basically, and we all had, either headphones. They played like some really cool like techno music in the background, really got me pumped up, and half the time I didn't even use the headphones, and I was just totally in the zone. I think everybody was. I was sitting next to Koopa Troopa on my left and Beaker on my right, and it started out so good for me, the 90-minute round. I actually won my first 9 matches in a row, so I was number 1 on the leaderboard throughout the first entire half an hour of the 90-minute area, but I was number 1 or 2, obviously after 3 or 4 or 5 matches. There was also people who had won 4 or 5 or 6 matches in a row, but for a while there, maybe a 15-minute period, I was first overall. So I was thinking, oh my god, I had no intentions of making it to the finals. I was just trying to have fun. I had a few beers, had a little buzz on, but just having fun. I was joking around while we were playing. It was intense. It was definitely intense, but it was also a heck of a lot of fun. So anyway, like I said, I was winning 9. I won 9 in a row, and I'm like, oh my god, I had no intentions of making it to the finals. I figured maybe 1 or 2 YouTuber, maybe 3 might make it to the final 8. I know that obviously Chief Pat and Molt are really good. I know Alvaro's really good. I know there was a lot of other good players there. And then to add to the intimidation factor, the guys from like Hong Kong Esports, they had like jerseys with the name of their clan on them. And a few other people had like clan t-shirts. I think they, these are the e-gaming guys who want to actually make, if this really takes off, which I think it will, who actually want to make competitive teams. So what they ended up, so it was really intimidating, basically is what I'm trying to say. And at that point I was like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be able to hang here, but I just want to have fun. And then I won the 9 in a row. I'll get back to this story in a second. Now I just want to hop into this first match and tell you a little bit about the deck I use and why I love it so much. So this deck is, it's called a Hog Cycle deck, right? I haven't done a video on it because to be honest with you guys, to be perfectly honest, I've been getting a little bit of grief from you guys, totally rightfully so, for highlighting too many decks with legendary cards in it. So not to digress too much here, but I will, hold off a little bit on legendary decks for now, because I realize that you guys have been giving me a ton of feedback, negative, and again, rightfully so, that I've been putting too much legendary content out there. So at this point in the match, I'm seeing the Mortar, right? So I'm like, okay, I kind of go with the show, and I pretend, oh no, he has a Mortar, I'm booing right now, and I try to get off my chair. But let's focus on my deck and why I'm a big fan of it, right? So Hog Cycle deck has the Princess and the Ice Wizard, at least my variation does. That Ice Wizard spot, everybody seems to play Princess if they have her in this type of deck. You can play Archers if you don't have the Princess. But the 2 legendary cards are just so powerful and useful, even though mine are only level 1. If you have them at level 1, you ought to consider using them in almost every type of deck you're using. If you see a lot of TV Royale uses both legendary cards, not all though, so there is flexibility there. But anyway, my deck does have both legendary cards in it. They have great utility, great flexibility, both defensively and offensively as well, and I like to use my Princess offensively more than your average player does, I think, by placing her right on the equator of the line, the halfway mark, and making my opponent react to it, hopefully spending more elixir, and then I can defend from there. So that's kind of my thought process, and at the same time, I can chip away a little bit at one of those towers. Now, the rest of the idea behind the deck is exactly what the deck's name is: Hog Cycle. You want to cycle back to your Hog card, and the reason it's called the Hog Cycle is because every single card in the entire deck, besides the Minion Horde, actually costs less than the Hog does. So you're using these really cheap cards. My average elixir cost in this deck is only 2.9. That's a really, really low cost. I want to say the tournament average elixir cost was closer to 4. I don't know that for a fact, but just off of the 30, 40 some odd matches I played, that seems to be, people were using more medium weight decks. I saw a few heavy decks in there, but not too many cycle type decks. There were definitely a few we'll talk about later. But so with my deck, the idea is to cycle back to the Hog, and you force your opponent to use his defensive cards in inopportune times. So the idea here is you try to bait out the arrow card, for example, by placing a Goblin card and a Princess card, and then you play the Minion Horde. That can be one example of an offensive counter-strike. Also, you can, the main focus of the deck is to use the Hog as much as possible, and I love using the Hog in combination with the Zap spell. If you use the Zap spell, obviously you guys know that, maybe 2 updates ago or whatever, they added the stun to the Zap. In that half a second or so that it freezes, aka stuns the units, the Zap spell is really what is the bread and butter of this deck, right? So you use the Hog, you get the Hog to the tower in combination usually of either skeletons or goblins. So you drop the goblins first, then you drop the Hog right after, right on the halfway mark of the map. And then you use the Zap spell right at the last second. As soon as your Hog gets to that tower, you use your Zap spell on whatever troop they try to counter your Hog with. Now, I said I have strengths and weaknesses. Let me talk briefly about that. This match actually ends up being a draw, the first one here. And, I was feeling pretty good about myself after this draw, but I made a grave error in the tournament rules, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But getting back to my own strengths and weaknesses, so I said that I do have certainly some weaknesses. Let's touch on those first. One is playing against a lot of building heavy decks, and as you can see, Steroidy is a defensive wizard. Besides the Mortar card, you can see that everything in his deck is like really, really great defensively, from distracting units such as the Skeleton, and he also has obviously the Hidden Tesla. He has the Mortar, he has the Inferno Tower, he has the Minion Horde, he has Zap, a great defensive card, he has the Elixir Pump that can even be used defensively as well, and Ice Wizard, which is, basically all his cards are very, very well for a strong defensive deck. It's a great Mortar deck if you want to go to the dark side and use a Mortar deck. This is a great variation. And Steroidy came in second overall after the 90 minutes of playing, so he definitely knows how to use it. If you want to emulate a steroid user, I almost said that might have been a Freudian slip. If you want to emulate a steroid user, aka a Mortar user, you might want to go ahead and take a look at his deck. Not that I'm promoting that, but hey, it is a card in the game, as so many have said, and as I said at the end, it's my job to counter that, not his job not to play it. So anyway, speaking of countering it, I made a really big error. Like I said, not sure it would have mattered at the end of the day, but I was it's all my fault here. As they were reading all the official finals rules in the green room backstage, I was kind of zoning out. I may or may not have posted on Twitter that I was in the finals, come watch me, and I kind of zoned out, and I just assumed that the rules would be the same that they were for the YouTuber tournament that I came in second place to Chief Pat in, and the rules there were that the loser is able to change the cards in their deck. And that's what I thought the rules would be here too. So I love, against Mortar decks, I love to add the Lightning spell in the place where the Ice Wizard is in that Hog Cycle deck. I love the Lightning spell because you can totally take out both an Inferno Tower and the Mortar, or a cannon some people play, and the Mortar as well. And then you can usually take out a troop at the same time, so you get a lot of bang for your buck when you add that Lightning spell. I think it takes the cost up to like 3.2, so it's pretty cheap cycle deck still, but what I would have done is just add that Lightning spell. That was my game plan if I ran into a Mortar deck. But boy was I wrong. It turns out we could set up 3 decks, but those were the only decks we could use. We could not switch out any cards whether we won or lost regardless. Only between the semifinals and the quarterfinals and the finals, then we were able to change our cards, but not in between matches. So, and that now it seems like common sense because primarily, you know, there's only a limited amount of time. If they did implement something like that, it would probably have to be a strict time limit on how long you have to change your cards, maybe 60 seconds or less. So, but I would like to see that added because I like to adjust on the fly rather than, you know, having no idea what your opponent's going to play and then just kind of guessing and hoping you have a nice counter deck set up. So I have 3 totally separate decks in this tournament. I was the only player, obviously, who A, didn't listen, shame on me, and B, who had 3 absolutely completely different decks. I had the Hog Cycle deck, I had a Pekka deck, which I'm playing right now, and then I had a Spawner deck, which I use next. So I had so much fun playing the 3 different decks, because, you know, at least I could try different methods against the Mortar, and Steroidy had the same deck, only changing 1 card in all 3 matches, so he was always using these decks with a lot of defensive firepower, and I really struggled. I really choked on the main stage. I was so proud and surprised to make it there, and then when I got there, I did the choke move. I did not pull off the win against Steroidy, so hats off to him for sure. But now let me talk a little bit about my strengths and why I love the deck so much, right? Because on top of the Hog being, you know, a great card, you can see my favorite card here in the real game is Hog Rider, and on top of the Hog being a great card, all of the other cards in this deck are really good for players who have a really firm grasp at where to place their card to distract, pull, or even kite different enemy units coming in that lane. So that is my biggest strength in the game. That's how I, you know, won most of my matches during the 90-minute period. And it's also, no matter what deck I'm using, really my biggest strength in general gameplay out in the open and matchmaking in the public. So the idea here is if you want to learn to be a better player to how to kite troops and how to distract troops away from your towers or into the crossfire of both or 2 of your towers, the best way to do it is maybe play against your clanmates and have them play a Pekka card or even a giant skeleton. It works really well against as well. And the idea against these type of cards is what you want to do is practice kiting that troop, distracting that troop all the way from one lane all the way to the other tower. And this deck works, not this deck I'm playing right now, but the Cycle deck works really well to that end. Essentially, I can use a skeleton in the center of the map to pull him about a third of the way, and then I can put goblins in the other lane, and they'll pull him to the opposite tower. Obviously, the cannon can be used to distract units as well, and the cannon is a very important card in not only that deck, but also the deck I'm playing right now, the Pekka deck. And against this opponent, I just really let him get the Mortar to me. You know, I kind of got greedy here. I really wanted to get 2 Pekkas in one lane here, with the Princess and the Ice Wizard backing them up, and I just didn't have enough time. If you see here, maybe another 10 seconds or so, that's what the commentator said, I might have pulled this tower off and maybe even gotten the 3 crown, but hey, time ran out. Should have had that in mind, should have countered that Mortar on the other side. I did not, and I lost again. So, you know, I had so much fun, but I am disappointed that I didn't have better counters to that Mortar. I go on to play a Spawner deck and another Hog Cycle deck against this guy, and to be honest with you, all the guys were pretty cool behind stage as far as the finalists go. I really, you know, I don't know, friendship might be too strong a word, but Jason seemed like a really cool dude, the guy who won it all. And it's funny, he was so nervous in the first match, so I tried to calm him down behind stage. I was like, you got this, man. And ever kind of since then, I was rooting for him from there on out. And in fact, I'm going to have him on my channel to talk about his deck, his experience, why he likes it, maybe some strategy stuff, coming up real soon in the next couple days, maybe tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, all the guys were really cool behind the scenes. The only guy that, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be a poor sport. They all seem like great guys. But the only comment that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was when the Derek from Hong Kong Esports said before his match that if I might butcher the quote here, so you'll have to go back and listen. But I think he said, Sean, the host, said, "How do you feel?" And he said, "Jet lagged, and if I win, it will be extra impressive because of how jet lagged I am, and if I lose, well, that will be the reason." And I thought that was a little corny to say, but hey, all in good fun. I'm sure he was nervous as everybody was on the main stage there. It's kind of an intimidating set, but anyway, I digress. And moving on here, I'm playing now I'm back to the Hog Cycle deck, and I'm having a lot of fun with it at this point. I think he's probably got me, but I want to go out with a bang. At this point in my head, I'm like, you know what? On the next deck, I'm going to play the Spawner deck, and I put in the Royal Giant, and I'm like, I think the crowd will love the Royal Giant. Royal Giant, not one of the most popular cards in the game, but I actually do like it in a Spawner deck. But anyway, getting back to the 90 minutes ahead of time, because that's the part that wasn't on film or wasn't streamed, and I really loved that part. It was probably one of the coolest things I've done in Clash Royale, even cooler than the YouTube tournament, to be honest with you. It was just so cool. Like, the environment was so intense and awesome. And so I won the 9 in a row. I was feeling great about life. Like I said, Koopa was next to me, and I was like, Koopa, I just won 3 in a row. And I was like, I won 4 in a row. I was like, dude, I just won 5 in a row, man. And I just kept going, right? And then I'm feeling awesome, right? Number 1, and things are looking great. And then I go on a 4-game loss. I lost my next 4, and I fell to maybe 60s or so in the tournament ranking. So picture, like, for those of you who didn't watch a tournament, who don't know, they did a play-in to the final live stream that I thought was a great idea. This is part of the whole system that I really loved. I can't get enough positive feedback about this. You know, like I said, at the end of the 90 minutes, whoever was the 8th highest players in trophies, they move on to the live stream, to the finals on stage. But before that, it was all not streamed, and we were just playing with our devices on a closed server, so it was only us 200 on the server, and we all just kept playing for 90 minutes against each other. And obviously, just like real life, when you win a lot, you go up against harder opponents because you're playing people at the top of the trophy range, and when you lose a lot, things get a little bit easier in terms of your opponent as well. So, you know, I was playing against tough guys after all those wins, obviously, and then I lost quite a few. This guy Voldemort, if you're watching out there, shout out, because he beat me twice in the entire 90 minutes. So I did lose 4 in a row, and then I kind of got, 1-1, lost 1, 1-1, lost 1, and then towards the, basically that kind of continued. I kind of flirted around the 60 to 40 range for a while, and then the last 20 minutes, I got another win streak, basically. So, it's all about getting those win streaks at the right time and being able to get matched up against players who are high enough ahead of you in trophies that if you beat them, you stand to gain 35 or 40 cups, and that's what I did. I actually beat 2 of the guys in the top 10 in the last 10 minutes. So that vaulted me about, 70 cups or so, and that was enough to push me back into the top 10, the top 8. So that's basically how I got there. It was a lot of fun, and it's so much fun. I mean, I can't put it into words how impressed I was with this set and the whole production level of the entire event. So that was fantastic. A little bit of extra feedback regarding the rules and how I would structure the tournament going forward. I would personally like to see a way to, you can see Steroidy being the villain there, showboating a little bit, dancing. He played the villain role really awesome, and you need a villain in every story, right? So anyway, but you know what? I think that I'd like to see players, not because I'm bitter at my loss, but I'd like to see players be able to change a card on the fly, given a small time period, because obviously the commentators are going to have to keep talking while you're doing this. So I feel like that would add an extra element of strategy to the entire tournament. So I would like to see that changed. But other than that, there weren't a heck of a lot of things that I had issues with. These players were already some of the best players in the world. For those who might not know, Supercell actually reached out and to the top level 9s and level 10s in the entire game as far as ranking goes, and they invited them to this event. So there was some really skilled players there. So the player pool and the battle content, I didn't run into anybody who didn't seem like they had a great grasp at the game and what they were doing. So as far as the player quality goes, that was really, really high. Really impressed with that. And as far as other cool things they could add, is I've seen some tournaments where the loser picks one card that the winner cannot use. Now, maybe not everybody would like that, but it would be a cool variation to do some of these tournaments, not all. I do agree that just this normal standard format seems to work really well, and it seems to be a lot of thought went into it behind the scenes. You can tell the Clash team so passionate about their game. All of them were there at the event and were perfectly willing to talk to the crowd. Just a really awesome style the whole Clash team has. So just kind of ending up here, the last thing I heard some people had issues with is the how you couldn't see the cards until the players used them at home when you were watching. Now, that's one thing that it's awesome to build the suspense, right? I mean, when I was waiting, like at this point, you can see 7 of my cards. The 8th card is the Royal Giant card. So when I play that, everybody kind of went crazy at the event. I'm not sure if you could hear it on the stream. That was another issue. For whatever reason, it didn't seem like you could hear the crowd noise loud enough. In the event, I'm telling you right now, no reason to lie to you here, it was electric through most of the live events. I mean, people were crazy, and Steroidy really got it handed to him from the crowd. I kind of felt bad at times. That's why I tried to compensate towards the end and really make sure I wished him good luck. But, you know, ultimately, I think it might be cool to actually be able to see all the cards that the players have at home, only because, at least for me watching, I can imagine that I would want to get inside the mind of the players playing and get some insight into the strategy they were using, why they were holding off a certain card. For example, now with my Royal Giant, I was waiting for the last minute to use that when I had more elixir to make a stronger push with a spawner deck behind that Royal Giant. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and end things after this match. It was so much fun. The entire event was an absolute blast. The other YouTubers that I'm sure you guys watch were so cool there. It was awesome to meet, like I said, a few guys, Game Hunter, Beaker, and Koopa for the first time. Really became really friendly with a lot of those guys. And as always, Supercell was so accommodating to everybody, taking us out to dinner and drinks afterwards as well, especially to the winners. It was cool to talk to some of the finalists and get some feedback on their gaming and stuff. We actually have 2 of them in my clan right now, so really cool to see that and to meet some of those great guys and the commentators and everybody else. Just fantastic stuff from top to bottom. Really awesome. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'm so thankful to all of you who are cheering me on. You can see right there, the Rocket took me out. Match over 3-0. I'm done, guys, and so is this video. Again, thank you so much for watching. So happy to make it to the main stage. Just not happy about going out first round, but a heck of a lot of fun either way. And at the end of the day, games are all about having fun. So guys, thank you so much for sticking in there till the end. If you watched till the end, comment, let me know. I'll give you some props. Thank you so much, guys. As always, take care.